What does it take to rewrite your destiny in Hollywood? For Matthew McConaughey. It all began with three words. All right, all right, all right. A throwaway line in Dazed and Confused that turned into a cultural trademark. But what started as a lucky break soon became a trap. Hollywood wanted the charming grin, the shirtless beach scenes, the rom-com star, and for a while, McConaughey played along until he realized the role the world gave him wasn't the man he wanted to be. So he did the unthinkable. He walked away, turned down millions, vanished from the spotlight. For nearly 2 years, Hollywood forgot about him. Critics called it career suicide. Even his family asked if he'd lost his mind. But out of that silence came one of the greatest comebacks in modern cinema. Dallas Buyers Club, True Detective, Interstellar. What the world called the McConaughey. Not just a career revival, but a complete transformation of identity, purpose, and legacy. This isn't just a story about an actor. It's a story about risk, faith, and the courage to say, I am more than what you think I am. In this video, we'll uncover the full arc of McConaughey's journey, the early spark, the rise and the trap, the gamble that almost ended it all, and the comeback that changed everything. And along the way, we'll ask, what can his story teach us about our own lives, our own second chances, and the power of choosing authenticity over comfort? Matthew McConaughey's story didn't begin with red carpets or Hollywood fame. It began in Texas, with a young man who wasn't entirely sure what he wanted from life. Like many college students, he was drifting between ideas, law school, storytelling, maybe a career behind the camera. Acting wasn't the plan. In fact, if you had told him at 19 that he would become one of the most recognized actors in the world, he probably would have laughed. The turning point came thanks to a friend at NYU who had been reading McConaughey's short stories and recognized something in him. A voice, a presence, a natural storyteller. That friend told him, "You belong in front of the camera." At first, McConaughey resisted, but that push gave him the courage to pick up the phone, call his father, and announce that he wanted to change course. His dad's response was simple, but it stuck with him for life. If that's what you're gonna do, don't half-ass it. That advice became his launchpad. In the summer of 1992, McConaughey wandered into the right bar at the right time. There he met casting director Don Phillips, who opened the door to a small role in Richard Linklater's coming-of-age film Dazed and Confused. Originally, it was just 3 lines. Background work. Really, but on set, McConaughey's energy couldn't be contained. His charm, his ease, and his instinct to improvise turned a small role into a breakout. It was during that film that he uttered the first words of his career. All right, all right, all right. Improvised, casual, unplanned, and yet somehow perfect. That line captured the essence of his character, Wooderson, and instantly cemented itself in pop culture. Nobody could have predicted that decades later. Those 3 words would still follow him in interviews, in speeches, even on Oscar night. But more important than the catchphrase was what it revealed about McConaughey. He had presence. He could take a role meant to be forgettable and make it iconic. That ability is rare, and Hollywood took notice. A few years later, McConaughey found himself auditioning for Joel Schumacher's A Time to Kill. Based on John Grisham's novel, it was a daunting challenge, the kind of role that could make or break a young actor. He wasn't a star yet, just another face trying to prove himself. But when Schumacher told him to throw away the script and speak from the heart, McConaughey tapped into something raw. He delivered the final courtroom summation, the scene that carries the entire film, with such conviction that it silenced the room. When the film released in 1996, McConaughey went from promising newcomer to headline star almost overnight. Critics compared him to Gregory Peck in To Kill a Mockingbird. Studios saw a new leading man, and for McConaughey, it felt like validation. The risk of walking away from law school had paid off. Looking back, what's striking about this period isn't just the luck or the timing. It's McConaughey's willingness to leap. He didn't tiptoe into Hollywood, he dove in. He improvised when he could have played safe. He poured his heart into a courtroom scene that could have gone wrong. And behind it all was his father's voice, "Don't half-ass it," for anyone chasing a dream. That's the lesson. Opportunities don't come with guarantees. Sometimes they're just 3 lines in a script or one audition you might never get again. What made McConaughey stand out wasn't that he had more talent than everyone else. It was that when the door cracked open, he stepped all the way through. By the late 1990s and early 2000s, Matthew McConaughey had achieved what most actors only dream about. He was the leading man. His rugged good looks, Texas drawl, and natural charisma made him the perfect fit for Hollywood's most bankable formula, the romantic comedy. Films like The Wedding Planner with Jennifer Lopez, How to Lose a Guy in 10 Days with Kate Hudson, and Failure to Launch with Sarah Jessica Parker became massive box office hits. McConaughey was suddenly everywhere, charming women on screen, flashing that trademark grin on magazine covers, and even making gossip headlines for his shirtless jogs on the beach. For studios, he was gold. For audiences, he was reliable. If you bought a ticket to a McConaughey rom-com, you knew exactly what you were getting. An hour and a half of lighthearted fun, wrapped in a feel-good ending. But here's the problem. Hollywood loves to put people in boxes, and McConaughey's box was labeled romantic comedy star. The studios were happy, the money was flowing, and audiences seemed satisfied. But for McConaughey, it became suffocating. He later admitted that while rom-coms were fun to make, he felt he could sleepwalk through them. If someone handed him a script today, he could film it tomorrow. There was no fear, no risk, no creative spark. Think about that for a moment. To the outside world, he was living the dream, millions per movie, global fame, adoration. But inside, he felt stuck, playing the same role over and over, trapped by his own success. And this is where his story turns from a typical Hollywood rise into something much more interesting. By the mid-2000s, McConaughey was at a crossroads. Offers for romantic comedies kept coming, each one bigger than the last. The paychecks were enormous. His agents were thrilled. Studios were practically begging him not to rock the boat. And yet, he knew that if he kept saying yes, he would never grow. It's what some call the golden handcuffs. When success is so comfortable, so profitable, that it becomes its own prison. Breaking free means risk, and risk means losing everything you've built. Most actors never take that leap. They keep cashing the checks until the audience moves on and the roles dry up. But McConaughey wasn't like most actors. In a move that stunned the industry, McConaughey began turning down scripts, not just 1 or 2, but all of them. For nearly 2 years, he disappeared from the screen. No rom-coms, no beach photos, nothing. Hollywood didn't understand. Agents warned him he was committing career suicide. Executives stopped calling. Even his family questioned whether he was making a huge mistake. For a time, it seemed like the critics were right. McConaughey's name faded from headlines. He wasn't being offered the kinds of roles he wanted. Heavy, dramatic, challenging roles. And without rom-coms, he had nothing. It was a gamble few would dare to make. But McConaughey believed in a bigger vision for himself. He knew he couldn't half-step his way into reinvention. To break free, he had to create a vacuum, a silence so deep that when he returned, audiences would be ready to see him differently. Looking back now, those 2 years of absence may be the most important part of his career. They were a test of faith, patience, and discipline. How many of us, in our own lives, have been tempted to settle for our good enough because the risk of chasing something better felt too great? McConaughey's decision reminds us that sometimes growth requires subtraction, not addition. You have to stop doing the thing that's holding you back, even if it means walking into uncertainty. In his memoir, McConaughey later described this as a period of red lights, moments when everything seems to stop. But those pauses often turn into green lights if you're willing to wait. His refusal to take the easy roles was exactly that. A red light that eventually cleared the way for something greater. And that something greater would come soon, because out of the silence, new offers finally arrived, darker, more complex, riskier projects that would challenge him in ways romantic comedies never could. It was the beginning of what critics would later call the McConaissance. But at the time, nobody knew if it would work. Would audiences accept him as more than the rom-com guy? Or had he burned his bridges in Hollywood forever? That's the cliffhanger where his story shifts gears. From safe formulas to raw, unfiltered drama. From paycheck roles to Oscar-worthy performances. From being Hollywood's most bankable lover to one of its most respected actors. When Matthew McConaughey vanished from Hollywood's rom-com circuit, many assumed his career was over. But in truth, that silence was the soil where a new version of McConaughey was taking root. After nearly 2 years off screen, the offers began to shift. Directors who once overlooked him now saw potential, and the projects that arrived were darker, more ambitious, and far riskier than anything he had done before. Mud, 2012, a quiet reintroduction. The first real turning point was Jeff Nichols' Mud. It wasn't a blockbuster. It didn't have the glossy packaging of his earlier films, but it gave McConaughey something he had craved for years, a role with depth, as a fugitive hiding on an island in the Mississippi River. His performance was raw and stripped down, showing audiences a man who could be vulnerable, broken, and human. Critics noticed. Suddenly, McConaughey wasn't just the charming leading man, he was a serious actor. Dallas Buyers Club, 2013. The transformation. Then came the film that defined his reinvention. Dallas Buyers Club. To play Ron Woodruff, a Texas cowboy diagnosed with HIV in the 1980s. McConaughey shed more than 40 pounds. The physical transformation was shocking, but the emotional weight of the role was even heavier. This wasn't a performance you could breeze through with charm. It demanded pain, grit, and an almost frightening level of authenticity. Audiences and critics were stunned. McConaughey won the Academy Award for Best Actor, and suddenly, the same industry that once boxed him in as the rom-com guy was hailing him as one of the finest actors of his generation. It was more than just an Oscar moment. It was proof that his gamble had worked. True Detective, 2014, The Philosopher on TV. If Dallas Buyers Club showed McConaughey's range on the big screen, HBO's True Detective revealed his power on television. Playing Russ Cole, a deeply philosophical detective haunted by darkness, McConaughey delivered a performance that was both unsettling and mesmerizing. His monologues about life, death, and the human condition became instant pop culture moments, quoted, parodied, and debated endlessly. What's remarkable is how natural it seemed for him. McConaughey later admitted that his own strong faith made it easier to dive into Rust's nihilism, because he trusted that when the cameras stopped rolling, he could return to himself. That's what made it so convincing. He wasn't faking Rust's despair. He was inhabiting it fully, knowing he could step back into the light. Interstellar, 2014, the emotional core. And then came Interstellar, directed by Christopher Nolan, as Cooper, a father leaving his family behind to save humanity. McConaughey became the emotional anchor of a massive sci-fi epic. In one unforgettable scene, he watches recordings of his children growing older without him, breaking down in tears as the years slip away. It's a moment that felt less like acting and more like pure reaction. A father imagining the unbearable loss of time with his kids. That performance cemented him not just as an Oscar winner, but as a global star whose work resonated across genres. After the whirlwind success of Dallas Buyers Club, True Detective, and Interstellar, Matthew McConaughey could have easily slipped back into the Hollywood cycle, chasing prestige roles, cashing in on his newfound credibility, and flooding the screen with appearances. But instead, he slowed down. This was not the McConaughey of the early 2000s who said yes to everything. This was a man transformed by experience, one who now measured success not by quantity, but by meaning. McConaughey began turning down scripts again, not because he feared being typecast, but because he wanted each project to matter. He once said that the true test of a role was whether it scared him just enough to make him grow. He didn't want easy, he didn't want predictable. He wanted stories that reflected something bigger. human struggle, resilience, or faith. For him, acting had become less about performance and more about truth-telling. When he played a character, he wasn't just delivering lines, he was asking, what does this role say about life, about choices, about who we are? That perspective kept his post-McConaughey's career from becoming another box to get trapped in. At the same time, McConaughey's personal life became his anchor. Marriage to Camila Alves and raising their 3 children shifted his priorities. He has often said that his family life feels more vital than any movie role. In fact, he credits that sense of grounding as the reason he could take risks in his career. Because at the end of the day, win or lose, he knew who he was at home. This balance is something many actors struggle with. Hollywood has a way of devouring personal lives. But McConaughey resisted that pull. Instead of chasing fame endlessly, he built rhythms of family, faith, and reflection into his daily life. Those rhythms gave him clarity when scripts arrived at his desk. Was this worth time away from home? Was it worth the investment of his energy, his identity, his name? If not, the answer was no. Another layer of McConaughey's later career is his faith. While he has never been the type to preach from the stage, his speeches and interviews reveal a man who sees life through the lens of grace, gratitude, and divine purpose. When he accepted the Oscar for Dallas Buyers Club, he thanked God first, calling him the person he looks up to every day. That wasn't a soundbite, it was the core of his worldview. His faith doesn't mean every role he chooses is religious. Instead, it means he looks for projects that align with truth, that explore the tension between light and darkness, that ask the hard questions. Playing Russ Cole in True Detective, for example, pushed him into the headspace of nihilism. But he could enter that dark territory precisely because he trusted he had something solid to return to. In recent years, McConaughey has stepped beyond acting to embrace another role, teacher. His memoir, Greenlights, became a bestseller not just because of Hollywood gossip, but because it distilled his philosophy of life into stories and lessons. He even taught a course at the University of Texas on film and storytelling, bringing his experience full circle from student to mentor. This is what makes his later career so fascinating. He's no longer just an actor who takes roles, he's a storyteller who chooses how to pass on wisdom, whether through acting, writing, or speaking. McConaughey has positioned himself as someone whose life is as much about meanings as it is about movies. By the time Matthew McConaughey reached the height of the McConaughey's, his story had become bigger than Hollywood. It wasn't just about an actor changing roles, it was about a man redefining what success means. And that's where his journey speaks directly to us, because behind the glamour, his choices mirror challenges we all face in our own lives. Lesson 1, don't half-ass it. Lesson 2, success can be a trap. Lesson 3, the power of saying no. Lesson 4, reinvention is always possible. Lesson 5, balance between work and life through it all. McConaughey never lost sight of family and faith. His children and his marriage grounded him, reminding him that no role, no award, no career move was worth more than the people he loved. And his faith gave him the perspective to navigate both light and darkness on screen. For viewers, this is a vital takeaway. Ambition is powerful, but without grounding, it can consume you. True success means winning in your personal life, not just your professional one. And here's where it gets personal. McConaughey's journey isn't just a Hollywood blueprint, it's a mirror. It forces us to ask ourselves tough questions. What rom-com role am I stuck in? The easy but unfulfilling version of myself. What risks am I too afraid to take, even though they might lead me closer to who I want to be? What am I half-assing that deserves my full commitment? When you frame it that way, his story stops being about movies and starts being about us. That's why the McConaughey's became such a cultural event. People love comeback stories not just because they're dramatic, but because they give us hope. If McConaughey could step away from fame, endure silence, and come back stronger, maybe we can reinvent ourselves too. His story is Hollywood-sized, but the lessons are deeply human. At its heart, McConaughey's arc is about courage, the courage to walk away, the courage to wait, and the courage to return when the time is right. And courage is something every one of us can practice. Whether we're chasing dreams on a film set or simply trying to live a more authentic life. When we look back on Matthew McConaughey's career, it's tempting to see it as a Hollywood fairy tale. The young man with charm, the rise to stardom, the fall into typecasting, the daring gamble, and the triumphant return crowned with an Oscar. But to call it just a fairy tale would be to miss the point. His story isn't about magic, it's about choices. From the very beginning, McConaughey's life was shaped by a piece of fatherly advice. Don't half-ass it. Those words carried him through chance encounters, courtroom monologues, and the very moments when he could have given up. They remind us that even when opportunities seem small, a three-line part in Dazed and Confused. For example, if you give them everything, they can open doors you never imagined. At the end of the day, McConaughey is proof that Hollywood's spotlight doesn't define a person, choices do. He chose to risk comfort for meaning. He chose to wait when the world moved on. He chose to come back on his own terms. And in doing so, he left us all with a roadmap. Give everything you do your full commitment. Don't let success become your cage. Learn to say no, even when it costs you. Remember that reinvention is always possible. And keep your foundation, family, faith, or purpose stronger than fame. These are not just lessons for an actor. They are lessons for all of us. So as we close this story, let me leave you with a question. What role are you ready to walk away from so you can finally step into the one you were meant to play? Because if McConaughey's journey teaches us anything, it's this. The script of your life isn't finished, and the most powerful lines may still be waiting to be written.